This year we are celebrating exactly 100 years from the publication of the book on the right, and 50 years from the first edition of the book on the left. These are two different Tolkien-related books, both containing versions of the 14th century Arthurian poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Now, this one here was edited by J.R.R. Tolkien and E.V. Gordon, Tolkien's friend and collaborator, with whom, among other things, he founded the Viking Club, where they read old Icelandic sagas, drank beer, and invented Anglo-Saxon songs. This particular edition contains the poem in the original Middle English, while the other book you saw at the beginning of the video has Tolkien's modern English translation. You'll see more of that one in a minute. In case you were wondering about the dust jacket, my copy came without one, so I took it upon myself to design and print a jacket on my own. I could have just printed a facsimile of the original cover, but I think it's good to try and take opportunities for fun little personal projects, and fun it was. Since I didn't want to think too deeply about the color choice, I just picked the complementary color for green, which would be red, and since I like bold colors, now you all have to live the rest of your lives with permanent eye damage. I also wanted to experiment with a little rule breaking, or at least rule bending, by using really small margins on the cover. Not sure why, but I think I like the result. The figure on the front cover came from the Morgan Bible, a 13th century French illuminated manuscript, and I thought this man, unbothered by an axe in his head, was the perfect fit for the Green Knight, given the gruesome yet humorous beginning of this poem. The axe ornament on the back was borrowed from the cover of the first couple of printings, sadly absent on later ones such as mine. Now, as for the book itself, along with the poem, it includes extensive notes and a glossary, useful even for people familiar with Middle English, since the poet used a largely extinct Northwest Midlands dialect, filled with unusual words and syntax quite different from someone like Chaucer, who used the more recognizable London dialect. This book was used widely for academic purposes, as you can see from the heavy annotation present in my copy and in many others on the market. I don't mind it. I actually find it quite nice to feel connected to some person distant from myself in both place and time. Except I would prefer it if the notes were more readable, so they could help me out, as they helped the student who made them decades ago. Speaking of notes, the ones written by the editors are most helpful. They touch on the origins and context of the poem, its meter and rhyme, as well as any specific details that may require some clarification. From what I understand, they were mostly provided by E.V. Gordon, while Tolkien worked on the glossary and editing of the main text. As far as looks go, it's a beautiful, no-nonsense design, well put together in a lovely small size. I'm no expert, and I assume in the meantime a more useful edition has been published, but from a layman's perspective, this is an excellent little package for anyone interested in the original poem. Now, as far as modern translations go, here we have a deluxe edition of Tolkien's own translation of the poem. The first edition was published in 1975, and it was actually the first Tolkien book that his son Christopher edited after his father's death. The book also includes two other translations of medieval poetry, namely Pearl and Sir Orfeo, Pearl being one of the other poems attributed to the unknown poet who wrote Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Tolkien's translation benefits from his own experience in writing poetry, as well as his firm grasp on the English language in all its forms. This truly was his bread and butter outside of his work on the stories of Middle-earth. The resulting text is quite beautiful but also precise. Apart from the poems and their accompanying introductions, there's a pretty big chunk dedicated to Tolkien's lecture on Sir Gawain delivered in 1953 that's also present in the Monsters and the Critics and other essays. Another inclusion is, of course, the glossary of some of the archaic and technical terms. Even though the poem uses modern English, this was a most welcome inclusion given the nature of the text, and Tolkien's own affinity for obscure, almost extinct words. As for the book's design, it's one of the more beautiful examples from this deluxe line of releases. The slipcase is wonderfully decorated with gold foil, using a design by Bill Sanderson, who also illustrated the title pages for each of the poems inside. His work can be found in some other Tolkien books, and it's always a joy to see. One detail which always tends to delight me are the color accents of certain words or letters. In this case, it's a pleasant mossy green, similar to the standard illustrated hardcover of The Hobbit. The binding is, of course, sewn and not quite so tight as most other books from this deluxe lineup. At the end of the book and on the frontispiece, you can find Tolkien's translation of 4 stanzas from a longer medieval poem that he titled Gawain's Leave-Taking, although the original poem had nothing to do with Sir Gawain, but according to Christopher Tolkien, his father gave it this name as a reference to the passage where Gawain leaves the castle of Bertilac to go to the Green Chapel. It's a touching inclusion, given the uplifting tone of the poem and the proximity of the 1975 edition to the year of Tolkien's death. Now good day to you, good men all, and good day to you, young and old, and good day to you, great and small, and gramercy 1,000-fold. If aught there were that dear ye hold, full fain I would the deed achieve. Now Christ you keep from sorrows cold, for now at last I take my leave. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.